Hey, welcome to the Cam Otis Show. On this episode, my bestest buddy from the Philly. Even though there's some things in Philly, she's about the only thing in Philly I really like. Although Philly cheesesteak, that's
I
pretty
was
good.
going to say you just haven't
Yes,
really been here.
yeah, you know that's right. That's right. I've had some experiences,
Yeah.
but I need to come see you, and we need to hang out. Well, now that I've said all that and we've talked about it, here she is, Miss Valencia Peterson. Coach V, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, especially glad to be here with you two great guys.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'm excited to get into ODAAP. Let me see if I can get it. Open Door Abuse Awareness Program. Boom! I did.
Prevention.
I did it. I get a go for the station.
Prevention,
Prevention.
not
Prevention. Dang,
Prevention.
dang, I was all happy about my.
Good try. Good try.
I was close. I was
You were
close. I get a
very close.
75%, which is a passing grade.
Oh,
To
yeah,
where we
that's
go,
right.
right? Coach V, tell us what's going on with ODAP,
Oh, what's
right?
going on with ODAP right now is we're about to take about 200 to 250 young men away for our trauma-informed violence prevention football coach camp. And I'm really excited about it. It's definitely going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be very, very worth it. We take these young men out by teams. And by the time we're done by the end of the month, because the whole month of July is committed to this, we would have served around 250 young men. And we take them out by the teams and we take them out to camp and we do a lot of play therapy. And then we do some lessons where they understand what regulation is and things about their brain. But I know it sounds crazy, like how is that violence prevention? But you and I both know awareness is the first step to preventing. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
And when you say camp, I mean, because there's different types of camp.
Oh,
There's
that's
the
right. That's right.
sports camp. There's the we're in a tent having campfires, cooking over stuff like what kind of camp are we talking? What's the environment going to be like for these young men?
Well, the environment is your typical campground with the cottages and things and the canoes, and they could build a fire and all that kind of thing. But the major thing about this camp is that it's a trauma, and I don't want to say it as a buzzword, but everything about it is trauma informed friendly. Right? Everything we're doing is about regulation. It's about helping young men understand themselves better, right? In order to make better decisions. And where I'm located, so this camp focuses on helping young men understand what makes them tick, right? And we spend a lot of time, talking to them about violence prevention, honestly, how to treat women and girls, how to deal with tough situations, because where we are in Philly and some other places, there's a lot of violence going on. And truthfully, a lot of kids are coming from violent situations, the ones that I work with. So I'm spending a lot of time getting that regulation going and that de-escalation going. And at the same time, we're doing play therapy and a little for sports, but it's not your X's and O's type camp. I hope that makes sense. It's a different kind of thing. I mean, ODAP's a little outside the box.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit, talking about the working through the trauma, the regulation, understanding themselves, all that. Could you talk a little bit about where these young men are coming from and, why they need ODAP?
Yeah. So everybody knows, 2020 with COVID, it was as though the world stood still. Our kids, it was like they lost a year of some sort of social development, right? And yet the world goes on and then they expect them to jump back in, right? And just pick up where they left off, when in fact, there was a moment where they stood still and things weren't continuing to progress for them mentally. For instance, one of the things if you're in a school for so many young people was a safe haven or a break from some of the stuff that was going on at home, the dysfunction, the violence, even the abuse. Okay, even the abuse. Some kids at least had the outlet of being able to go to school, get a meal, and have a reprieve. But COVID took some of that from kids and young people that needed that. And so now we've had some of our young men and young girls too, home, exposed to more things that weren't healthy for them. And then they come back into this environment of a school and they just don't know how to function. You can imagine they're sitting in the back of their classroom on their phones, just zoned out. They haven't had the proper time to assimilate right back into that life again. And I know that sounds a little it's not far-fetched. I know it sounds a little bit, rough, but it's exactly what's going on with our young people. I want you to really picture this: a young kid going through a lot of traumatic stuff at home, dysfunction. School has been their only means of some sanity. And now you're stuck in a house with this all the time. It's hard to just jump back in and pick up where you left off for a kid. It's hard. So a lot of our work now is keeping that in mind, being kind to and thought, aware of where a kid's brain state is now, right? So when I talk about trauma and all those things, we want to be sensitive enough to understand that there may be situations with these kids that they just need healing from. They just need healing from. So I use the medium of sports to heal traumatic things. Honestly, because if a kid doesn't want to do anything else, he wants to play a sport. And if he's going to press through anything, it's going to be on that field. You know what I'm saying? And that is one thing about kids. I'm going to tell you something right now. Like, for my young men who are afraid to walk on the streets of Philadelphia, if they have practice, they will brave the streets to come to that field. They will brave the streets to come to that field. That's how important it is for them to be in that type of community. I'm telling you, I see it. I've seen it over and over again. So I'm using the medium of sports to get that kind of healing into my young men.
This is a little bit off subject, but I'm sorry. No. What I want to ask though is, because I'm just kind of curious about this, because I have my perceptions and my beliefs, but do these young men push through to get to practice because they have a vision of sport getting them out of that situation, kind of that I'm going to be an NFL player sort of thing, or is there something else?
It's all about getting out. It's all about getting out. This is my way out, my only way out. Now, that's not a healthy mentality, honestly. That's not, but it's a lifeline that they hold on to in their minds. This is my way out. And therefore, they're willing to brave the streets. They're willing to brave walking through that area that they know normally isn't safe. It's a big drive for them. And it's equally as difficult for us to make sure that they understand that's not all there is to you. But it's big, it's a big drive, Otis, big drive, my way out.
Does that go back to the same kind of trauma that you're working with ODAAP, that, wanting to get a good outcome, and that in their mind, it's the only outcome, they don't see the wide array of outcomes that they could get in life. They see NFL, or they see, the bad outcomes that they're seeing on their way to school and that kind of stuff. Is it that black and white to them when they're looking at it? And then is that kind of where ODAAP comes in to help show them that, you can move beyond these things and get these wide array of outcomes that, are out there in the world?
Yes, but we do a little bit more than that. We start to
dive. You do a lot more than that.
Yeah, we do. But we start to dive into, why is it that that's the only thing you think is going to let you out? And what is it that you're running from? What is it this out? What is involved around this outness, right? Because we know, and you and I know, your problems come with you. You bring all your baggage into relationships. You bring your baggage wherever you go. Your baggage never leaves you. You got to deal with that thing. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite quotes is that if you go somewhere to try to escape your trauma, or if you go somewhere to try to escape your habits and these type of things, soon as you come back, they're going to come back. If you go off to Hawaii to find yourself, you're going to come back to Tucson, and you're going to get hit in the face of those same habits once again. Exactly.
You can't run. You can run, but you can't hide. And so one of the things that we do from a trauma-informed perspective, and again, this trauma-informed word is kind of thrown around kind of loose right now, it makes it ineffective, right? But what we're trying to do, we say, okay, don't hurt anyone, don't commit a violent act. Instead of saying that, ODAAP is saying, why would you do that? What would make you want to do that? Let's talk about that. Where did you see, what learned behavior did you see that made you think that was okay? It's more like that. So if you can imagine, when the guys come to camp, one of the first things that we're going to be talking about is just the word relationship, right? And we're going to go all the way back to when they were in their mother's womb. I'm going to ask them, what was the very first relationship you ever had? And they might go through some silly thing, but I'm going to bring it back to being in your womb, hearing your mother's heartbeat. That was your very first relationship. And if your mother experienced anything that was traumatic, whatever your mother felt, you felt. Whatever your mother felt, you felt. And in light of that, if mom was going through a hard time, you felt that too. And as you came out of mom, some of the things that mom experienced while you were in the womb, those things to you are still real. If mom jumped when the door slammed, when you're out of mom's womb, you're gonna jump when the door slams because you reacted. And so we take it all the way back to there with our players and then move forward from there. Now, here's the outcome that we're looking for. We're looking from the outcome of it's not my fault the way I am to some degree. Imagine that. If empathy was not cultivated, even in the brain, if empathy wasn't, there's a part of your brain that deals with empathy. In order for that part of your brain to be awakened, you have to have that kind of behavior happening towards you so that your brain can recognize, say, oh, that's what that is. But if that's not in you, if it's not cultivated, if it's not stirred up in you, then it's not something that grows with you. It's a deep thing, but believe it or not, kids kind of get it. And they have an aha moment, and ODAAP lives for that aha moment. Because once we get the aha moment and they realize, oh, Dad, this is the way I'm wired, now we can start to do something about it. This is not good. Let's change it. Now we start pouring the tools. We give the guys tools to change what now they're aware of that they weren't before. That makes sense?
Yes,
it's kind of deep, but it's not.
Oh yeah, and I could see how the kids you work with, they might not understand it on this deep psychological level, but they get what you mean, and they can get it enough to start moving forward with that. You already kind of touched. You already kind of touched on trauma as the buzzword, and wanting not wanting to get confused or muddied up because it's a buzzword nowadays. With the renewed focus on mental health and those type of things. One of the things that I've seen, and we actually had this conversation with Josh Bynum when we had him on, Dad, around trauma, is that as we're starting to recognize trauma and recognize mental health illnesses that people have, and these different, that everyone's going through these different struggles, I think that there's this first step of recognition, like we all understand it's there, and then a lot of people stay on that recognition step and kind of do well, that's the way I am type of thing. I always think of the astrology thing, like, well, I'm a Gemini, so I act like this, instead of changing past, because frankly, that's how it sounds just as ridiculous to me, that it's like, well, I had trauma, therefore I'm a bad person now. It's like, whoa, we can still grow. So what I'm curious about is, how do you get them from that point of recognition to the point of, okay, I can take control of this. It's something that's in control of me. Even if there's some wiring messed up, I can still, rewire. I can still grow. I can still get better.
That's the great part about this. When you see that works, that's the great part about it. And again, young people, I've found they get it when you just keep it simple, right? What I talk about was with the red and blue brain, right? And regulation. I say to my kids, okay, when you notice yourself, because now you're aware of yourself, right? When I ask my kids this, let me give you an example. I give my kids some stickers with smiley faces on. And I say to my kids, I want you to put this sticker on the part of your body that you notice when you start to get angry, reacts. Right? So they'll take their sticker. I'll never forget doing this to Del Valle University, big old guys, in college, and they were walking around with stickers all over their body. It was so funny. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I would tell them to put the sticker on the part of their body that they noticed that they feel anger. Some of them put it on their fist. I think I did this with you, Otis. You know what I'm talking about? And they put it on their fist and everything but the reason why I did that exercise is for them to actually where in their body do they're experiencing that, and allowing them that little bit of time to recognize that thing in order to take another route. And so the other route, now we get into what are some of the things that you can do to take another route? What about counting to 10? What about putting some music on? What about talking to a friend? These are the things that are going to counteract this drive or this automatic sensation to do something you shouldn't do, right? So part of it is actually giving the kids tools and ideas of things to do to calm themselves down, knowing that, I'm starting to get angry, or I'm starting to unregulate. I want them to do this. Cam, I want them to reach into their toolkit. You think about that tool belt around you when you're working, right? I want them to reach into that tool belt and pull out something. Okay, this is what I can do for this. I'm starting to feel this way. Let me do this. And you need to give kids that. You really do. Because they don't have it, believe it or not. Some of them just don't know how to deal with themselves when they're frustrated. They really don't.
And I think that's one of the things that was coming to mind. Go ahead.
You're just making me laugh, and then I'll let you go with that thought. But it is, I remember what my mom used to do, patience for me. She would spell out patience.
That's a good one.
P-A.
So I know how to spell that word very well, because Mom used to say that, spell it out loud a lot. Go ahead, Camden.
I was just going to say that makes me think of, we think about a lot of different social things, or things not even social necessarily, but just human behavior things that are natural to a lot of people that are not natural in a lot of other people. And it's just that recognition of some people need to learn these type of things, like anger management. A lot of people need to learn anger management, but there's also a lot of people out there who never struggled with it. But you can apply those same types of lessons that you're doing to anxiety, to depression, any of those type of things. When you're talking about what part of your body do you feel anger in first, I immediately went to Dad, you talk about this all the time, the self-fulfilling prophecy of when you get pissed off or you get anxious and you go like this, and then you go like this, and then you're breathing, it constricts your lungs a little bit, which means you get less oxygen, which means that your brain goes into fight or flight mode, and all of these type of things that start happening. Yeah. And it just starts with the recognition of, I just need to stand up straight, puff out the chest a little bit and take a deep breath. Yes. And as ridiculous as that sounds, that helps so much. And it's natural to some people, but if it's not natural to you, then you need to take the time to learn it.
Exactly. And you know what? This whole anger management thing, to me,
you got a better word for it?
I don't know about that. All I want to say is, let's get to the root of the anger. Mm. Let's not manage it. Let's get to the root of it. You know what I mean?
Anger.
Why manage it when you can root it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the dandelions out in your yard, right? You can go pluck the top of it off, but it ain't going to get rid of it. You got to get down to the root of that dandelion, which
Exactly. Let's not manage it. Let's get to the root of it. Why do you feel angry? What happened that you feel angry? Let's not manage it. Let's get to the root of it. Because once you get to the root of it, and you have, again, my aha moments, right? Open door abuse awareness, right? Your aha moment here. You go, okay, that's why I do what I do. And there's so much freedom in understanding why you do what you do. There's so much freedom in that. There's so much freedom in that. And I've seen my young men as players experience that freedom. And Otis, let me just tell you this. The reason why we're not a program.
I'm never going to live that down now.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I liken a program to driving through McDonald's to feed a child versus teaching them how to cook their own meal and go to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Let me say that again. I liken a program to driving through McDonald's to feed a child instead of sitting them down, showing them a recipe book, going to buy the ingredients and cooking it for themselves. That's how I look at program, the word program.
Well, and that's my favorite thing about what you do. You know, it's getting to the root of it. It's not treating symptoms, because treating symptoms doesn't solve the problem. You got to get to the root of it.
Yes, you do.
I'd love for you to share that story of that first high school coach that you walked up to, and I'll just say it like I hear it, is you sold this idea to him.
I sure did. I sure did. You know, this young man, and to this day, that coach, I met that coach in 2014. I just danced with him at his wedding.
Oh.
I just danced with him at his wedding. And this speaks to the relationship that ODAAP, I want to build with the people I'm pouring into. Again, that's why we can't be a program. That's not a program right there. That's doing life with folks, right? But you know, as I was walking around the field looking for someone to do a violence prevention program with, I thought, how ironic, you know, he's doing violence and I want to do anti-violence, because football is one of the most violent sports you ever play. But as I walked up to him and I thought, is he going to want to do this? And he was 0-11. They hadn't won any games. So he was looking for anything at this point. So he just said, why not? You know, let's try it. They went on to be champions that year when we first started working with them. And you know what? Let me tell you one of the biggest changes that happened during the first year I worked with that team. I made sure that those young men knew it was okay to cry. I made sure that team, the first year I worked with them, they had been on this losing streak, like I said. So as I got in there, working with the coaches, they won the championship for their county. They won that. And one of the things that was really different about that team was that they understood me being there. You know, I'm telling them it's okay to cry if you're upset. It's okay to release, because you can't cry if you're a boy, you see. There's so many things you got to hold inside. And oh gosh, I liken it to, I tell my guys, I tell my guys, what does poop and tears have in common? I hope you're
something with holding them in.
I asked my guys, you said this was real life, Otis, so I'm going there. I said, what does poop and tears have in common? And my boys looked at me and they was like, it's wet. But you know what I ended up telling them? At the end of the day, both of them are a release. They both release. And to drag it home, I said, what happens if you don't poop? You will die. It's the same with your tears, whether you realize it or not. If you keep all that built up, pent up, whatever anger in you, your kidneys suffer, your heart suffers. And we know this to be the truth, right or wrong. Oh, yeah. These are stress response mechanisms that's bad for your body. But here's the thing about that. When they went to bathroom that day, they knew it. They thought about it. It's okay to...
It's like Coach B's in my head while I'm pooping.
It's okay to cry. It's normal. Yeah. Your show is gonna be like scratch. Can you want to edit this part out?
No.
We gotta keep the jokes in.
Yep, that's the best part right there. What I want to know is, and you touched on this, but have you seen a performance improvement in these young men as they start to understand the red brain, blue brain principles that you teach them?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I want you to imagine, okay? I've seen it so much. You know, sometimes I sit back and watch what we do, and I think to myself, because we're so small, if somebody really saw this, they'd be blown away, right? I really think that sometimes. But last year, when I really drove the red and the blue brain to the football team I was working with, it was all about regulations and getting a hold of yourself when you start to feel yourself slipping. That's what it was all about, red and blue brain, right? gave them the tools, had them come up with the things that they felt would work for them, because it's on them to do that, you know? So all throughout the season, and I lie not, on the sideline, the boys were saying, get in the blue, get in the blue, get in the blue. They were making, you know how you call in football, Omaha, you know, whatever, you know, one word. And they knew who was going to do the hitch, you know, who was going to do, you know, take it down to the seam. You know, they knew what was going to go. Who's going to do that curl, that dig. One word told them this whole play. Well, get in the blue on the sideline told all those kids, regulate, get a hold of yourself, right? And why? Because maybe the other team, one of the guys was running their mouth and their guy was starting to get triggered. It was about to give us a personal, you know, penalty. You understand what I'm saying? But one of his teammates yells out, get in the blue, get in the blue. He stops, gets a hold of himself, you know, regulates, gets back in the game. Cortex is now working. I know I'm not going to listen to this dude, tune him out, let me go. This team, and I kid you not, this team won every game they played last year, except for the last one, which was for the state championship. Mm-hmm. And that's the honest God truth. Every game they won, every game, and they won by a lot too.
And you know what the life lesson is? You can't perform at your best if all you see is red. I mean,
how about that? How about that? And let me tell you the sweetest thing I saw: a player tugging at a coach, saying, "Get in the blue, coach," because he yelling at the referee.
I love that.
Coach, get in the blue. I mean, that was a really big thing at this football. Everybody knew get in the blue. And it was just 2 words, but that came from camp that we're about to do right now with a bunch of teams. I'm gonna do the exact same thing with all of those teams. And those who have heard get in the blue, they're gonna get deeper into what that means for them. You know, and it, again, repetition, just like we do reps in football. This is all about repetition.
That's so true. The reps part. I had another question, but then that is so freaking true, because when you think about any of these types of like mental habits or like different things like that,
reps.
It's just reps. Like everyone wants to just magic, you know, take the pill, everything's better. There's nothing like that though. You have to do the reps if you're going to get better. And, you know, it makes me think, I think we did a talk on this a while ago. It would have been with Tribe and Purpose, but we were talking about how, if you were walking down the street and somebody yelled something terrible at you, like, would you just be like, oh yeah, the guy's probably right. Like I'm a jerk, you know, I'm an idiot. But it's like, but yet if you say that to yourself, you let it happen. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's, you know, I likened it to being in a fight. If somebody punches you, you're not just going to stand there and go, hey, right here, you know, give me another one. No. And you're not, why would you do that to yourself when you're, you know, thinking you're stupid or, you know, whatever imposter syndrome you have going on. And it just takes those reps, as ridiculous as it sounds, that when you hear something creep up, you know, when you feel the shoulders go forward, you feel that fist clench, whatever it is, you got to find that and then work on the reps to make it better.
Now you're speaking to mantras, which is a part of regulation. You have to create your own personal mantra. I am brave. I am strong. Anything that you know that puts your mindset correct. Now you're speaking to mantras now, which is very good for every young person to have, which is something I, you know, for my girls group, we have a girls group, and this is their mantra. We are trendsetters, holding ourselves to a high standard of kindness, individuals who are beautiful, bold, and fierce leaders. Every time I get together with my girls, we say our mantra. Every time, all throughout the school year. If they don't know nothing else, they know their mantra. So you're speaking of mantras, I believe, when you say something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said for that, because that repetitiveness, you're saying that every day, you know.
Exactly.
It's in your brain and you can't.
Words matter.
Yep. Words matter. Right. Words matter.
Hey, I'm curious about now you mentioned, you know, the kids missing out on the social interactions of school because of the pandemic. Have you had to or looked at or done anything different with your program and how you interact with the kids post-pandemic? Now that we're back in school, we're kind of normalized things back to a pattern of life that is more normal, I guess. I don't know. I'm running out of big words to say.
Don't say normal too many times.
I've said normal.
Yeah, what's normal?
Yeah, because I don't believe we're back to normal. I believe this is just now our new normal.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but what, if anything, have you had to change from, pre-Rona to post-Rona?
I think that just the only thing really is just the awareness piece. Just being aware is the only thing because we've always been like that trauma conscious thing, but I think it's being more deeply aware of what it's caused, and therefore, we took, what is that? Not being that, just being more careful how you approach people. If anything, it has caused me to be more careful about how I approach people, not knowing, we don't know what's going on with them, More in the back of my mind now, when I talk to a young person, whoever it is, if they're having a hard time in school, I'm thinking, what happened? Not what's wrong with you. I'm thinking, okay, it just makes me stop and just really look deeper into why or what happened. That's the only thing that's changed. I'm more like that now, Otis, than I've ever been. I'm more like that than I've ever been. What happened? I mean, no one can tell me anything about anybody that's horrible that I'm not going to say now, what happened? Mm-hmm. I'm always going to do that now.
And that's such a good phrase for, I think, everybody to learn is what happened, instead of saying, what's wrong with you?
Because see, here's the other thing. A part of my trauma that sparked me to be and do what I'm doing was that my dad killed my mom. And to this day, I will tell you, I don't think he woke up and said, I'm gonna kill my wife today. These things don't happen out of the blue. There's things that lead up to that kind of behavior. There's things that cause that. And I know for a fact, I really believe this with all of me, that ODAAP is preventing right now somebody from taking that type of action. Why? Mm-hmm. Because we're dealing with some of the things that happen to them in order for them to be aware so that they take a different path. And again, the coaches, like if you were to talk to my coaches and just, I'm not around, I'm a fly on the wall. If you would talk to my coaches and they would tell you how being a part of ODAAP has affected their lives as coaches, it surprises me to hear them talk to each other. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, really? I never thought twice about it, but they're just as, they're tuned in. As I'm teaching the young men, they're so tuned in and they're taking it in for themselves. And so I'm not even thinking about them. And next thing I know, they're having a conversation like, and I'm not even thinking about them. I'm focused on my young men, and yet my coaches are gleaning and I'm hearing later about what happened with them. And now they are aware. Now they can be a better coach. They can be a better coach. A better coach.
I think, talking about them being a better coach, it goes back to earlier, talking about the red brain versus the blue brain while you're playing. Yep. And, you said the player telling the coach, get in the blue. Yeah. I can think of that our good friend, Coach Coco down here at the U of A. I remember once, and actually, I think you might have said this to me, so maybe I need to get it yelled at me a few times when I'm coaching, but it's, hey, they can't hear you, right? Like just that, like you're screaming out and it's just, hey, nobody on the field actually hears anything you're saying. They might hear that you're yelling, but they're not understanding a single thing that you're yelling out there. And recognizing that and stepping back and, getting in the blue like that and approaching it from a calm point, you're going to get so much better of a performance out of yourself and your team that way. And if anyone's listening and they're a coach and I doubt this, but if they don't believe how effective this would be in performance, what it makes me think is, and Dad, especially in rugby, you got your 6, your 7, your 8. Yeah, they got their jobs they do inside their positions, but the biggest job they do is just to mess with the other team the entire game. Just doing anything that can just get in their head. Just a little jersey pull, a little poke, just anything that could just get them, to your point, Coach V, into the red. Because then if they're making a bad decision, they get that yellow card, we're up a guy. It starts to spiral that way. Yeah. And just like you want to approach that, like tactically, that you want the other team to get into that, a little bit of art of war. you also want to approach it from your side of preventing that from happening, because that little piece of rugby strategy, it's not just rugby, and it's not just the teams I've coached with that do that. That's every single
football,
team.
it's huge in football.
Oh,
It's huge.
There's some
huge.
talking on that line in football.
Oh my gosh. There's so much talking on that line. Ooh, that's why I got to tell my kids, like, getting them blue, you know what I mean? And when they start running their mouths, because they run their mouths too, the main focus is when to turn it off. When to turn it off. You have to have a red brain to play football. You're not going to sit there and get hit without some sort of aggression inside of you, and you're not going to hit anybody else. So I tell my kids in a heartbeat, it's okay to have a red brain. You need a red brain to flee. You know what I mean? You need a red brain to some degree, just like being angry is not wrong, right or wrong. There's nothing wrong with being angry. It's a part of life. It's a normal emotion. It's what you do with it. Same with the red brain. It's what you do with it.
What's one of your favorite little, and I don't mean little in a belittling sense, but your games or role play, or when you're at camp, tell us about one of those that's like you just grin from ear to ear every time boys start doing it.
Going over the wall. I have an 8-foot wall there. I love it. I love it. The 8-foot wall, and what's written on this wall, it's like 8 feet high, probably 10 feet wide. What's written on it is the word life. And they have to get over the wall in complete silence. They can't talk to each other. I must hear no sound at all. And I tell them, you have to get over this wall. And there's a key thing I'm looking for. And if I don't see it, you're gonna have to go over this wall as many times as you need to in order for me to see what I'm looking for. Now, start. And they start jumping over the wall, and I'm watching them, right? And they get all over the wall, and I say, do it again. I didn't see what I was looking for. And after the third time, it was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You know what I mean? What did they not do? They didn't help each other. It was a one-man show. I'm jumping over the wall by myself. Nobody was on the other end to catch the guy. What about the lineman? Is he getting over the wall by himself? No. No, he's not. But instead of the whole team coming over there to get that lineman, you might have 2 guys. That's not acceptable to me. As a team, you move together as one. And I tell them, there's something wrong with the way you all are doing this. Are you working together? And then I'll say nothing else. I go, do it again. And this time they start to work together a little bit more. And by the last time they do it, I have one young man stand on the top of the wall. Now he's about 6 feet or whatever. He's standing on the top of the wall. So now the wall is like 14, because there's 8 and there's him. I tell him to sit down on the wall. And I said, now I want you to fall back into your team's arms. Trust fall, right? Do you trust this team? And I picked the person to do it too, y'all. Like, I'm very strategic. It's the one that's the most not bought in. The one that's really more like, I don't know if I want to be here. I put him on the wall.
All right. Well, what's the record for the number of times that a single young man has had to go over that wall until it has started to click?
Well, I don't know if it really clicks, to be honest with you, Otis, but at least they did what I told them to do. Yeah. But, I think about 3 times they get the idea. Okay. Anyway, how about that? 3 times they got the idea.
Yeah.
But when I know, one of the things that does for the team is that when they go back, and I've seen this, when they go back on that field, win or lose, their mindset is, we are a team. Now, I'm going to tell y'all a story. Now, this is going to be a hard story for y'all to hear. Now, y'all can cut this out if y'all want to on your recording.
We won't.
Okay. So one year, I had a mixed team, all kind, diversity, but it was more like a Remember the Titans type team. You all know that movie, Remember the Titans?
Yep.
It was more like a Remember the Titans team. And I'm very observant. So I observe my teams like because we do 4 hours of play therapy, right? So during play therapy, I'm watching to see what is the connection going on here. Who's playing with who's in a group, yada, yada, you know? So I noticed I had a Remember the Titans type team on my hands. You know what I'm saying? So I pulled out and I will change up in a minute at camp if I feel like I need to. I will throw my whole curriculum out the window to deal with what I see. So I pulled out my Remember the Titans and I just little clips. And we start talking about what it meant to be a brotherhood, what it meant to be a team, and the whole trust fall, the whole wall. When that team left camp, and I kid you not, 2 days later, I got a call from a young man. Coach V, I need to talk. I can't take my family anymore. And I was like, what is going on? What is going on? I said, okay, give me a minute. Let me call you. And he said, Coach V, I can't take my family anymore. I can't take them. He said, it's not good. It's not good. I said, well, what's happening? And he said, when we was eating at the table, my family, I think his uncle or somebody said to him, get ready. He said, are you still playing with those niggers? My young man, he said this to me. He said, Coach V, normally I wouldn't say anything because that's my family. But after coming to camp, that's not right. And again, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not making this up. I know it sounds like it, but it's not. He told me, I can't be bothered with this. I said, hold up. I said, that's your family. I said, it's not for you not to be bothered with them. You need to be an example of what's right. Mm-hmm. I would never tell you shouldn't have nothing to do with your family. That's not what we're after here. What we're after is you being that light in this dark, dark place. He said, they're my brothers. I said, I know they're your brothers. And I said, it's interesting. Before this, you probably never thought about it. He said, I didn't. And they went on, they didn't win like a championship, but they went on to play well together. Now, I'm just telling you what I know and what I see and what has happened. I'll never forget that. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can, but I'm not.
And that's what's awesome about it. And so you touched on something I wanted to do a follow-up on is after the camp, boys get into season, you know, that just shortly after camp, they'll be out doing 2-a-days, getting ready, right?
Yeah.
How do you follow up with them throughout the season?
Once a week or once every other week, I visit the team throughout the whole season. On Fridays, I choose what team's games to go to. You see what I'm saying? What we do is we have advocates that follow up with the teams. Once a week, somebody is going to see, or once every other week, that team is going to be seeing somebody from ODAAP. Once a week at least, and we'll have a chat. How's it going, guys? Remember what we learned at camp? And here's the thing. This is not a whole session. We're talking about 10, 15 minutes. That's all you need after camp. All you need is 10, 15 minutes a week. You don't need more than that. The issue is to be present, to be consistent, right? And they know who you are. You're a safe place. And that's the other thing with programs. It's hard to be consistent in a program that's driven by money. Because when the money runs out, the program usually fizzles. It's just the way of life, you know? So again, the coach that I met in 2014, who I just danced to his wedding less than 7 months ago, I've been with that coach for a long time. I've seen all his kids graduate, go to college. ODAAP, we never love them and leave them. And that's why we're very picky about who we work with. They have to be committed to this family, this ODAAP violence prevention family. It's just something a little different. I mean, the impact, we may not reach like 100,000 people, but the people we do reach is going to be very impactful.
You may not reach, you may not reach
Huh?
100,000 people this weekend, but you'll be reaching 100,000 people well before.
Yeah, because one person's, the young men that I've trained already,
Mhm.
they're telling people about what they learned. And I know that's happening too.
Yeah.
So
What I'm trying to think how to ask it. So as you talk about the outcomes, we kind of talk about, checking in on the kids, making sure, they're getting out there, that you said that 15 minutes every week during the season. How can you measure your impact? How, because when you're talking about prevention, we talked about this last time we recorded this podcast, round 2 here, but about the prevention and how prevention is so hard to measure, because if you're successful, you're measuring the lack of something, not, there's not some new outcome. It's that there's not that outcome is what you're looking for. So how are you able to measure that? And then I guess also, how can you tell if it really clicked in the player? Because there's no test. You're not testing the playbook when they get out of there. Like, look how I learned at football camp. It's, the kid who's on the wall who needed that extra push and did to do the trust fall because he wasn't bought in. How can you tell when they're bought in? And whether it's a, literal measurement type thing, you got a system, or a gut feeling, either way on that.
Well, we do one thing I found just recently. We do the pre and post test, but my testing measures have been in particularly the area of violence prevention. Not so much in all the other, there's organizations out here who do pre and post surveys for social emotional learning and yada yada. I have just done it for violence prevention to see if there's been a change of mind in my young men's perspective as to how they would handle a certain situation, such as, a young man catcalling a girl, or, being disrespectful toward a woman. These are the things that I've always tried to measure. Now, to your question of how do I know? A lot of times I know from others telling me. Or you see that young man that called me and said, I'm through with my family. I can't deal with this anymore. Why did he say that? That is a measure right there by itself. I mean, it's not something that, how can I measure that on a piece of paper with data? It's qualitative data is what I always get. I get qualitative data. Coaches let me know. Coach V, my team, ... Teachers let me know. Principals let me know. Because what happens, imagine this now. Imagine if you start working with a football team in a school, right? And they're the big, what do you call it? They're the moving or the big factor in schools. Everybody likes to follow the football team, right? If a football team takes a pledge, right, you start to see the ripple effect in the school, because now my guys are acting differently. They're acting differently. Their influence, right? Their influence is different now. They're not walking down the hall with the girl's head sandwiched between their elbows and their arms. That's stopped now, because this is not the way you ought to treat young women and girls. You got to be respectful. I'll never forget this. A administrator, somebody called me at home. I was like, Coach V, I don't know what you're doing, but just now, so-and-so, an incident happened in school, and this young man walked away. He did not smack this girl. And I don't know what he'd been doing, but they were ready for this big rumble, but my young man walked away. And then his mother called me and go, I don't know what happened. When they asked the young man, like, what happened? He said, I was thinking Coach V wouldn't want me to do that. We can't do that. We took a pledge not to hurt women. I find out these things through testimonies, believe it or not. Even to this day, the young men that I've worked with in 9th grade, they come back, they talk about it. And again, this doesn't help me fundraise per se, because these are things that take a while to take root. Old habits die hard, right? So rep. So that's how I know. Personally, I know when coaches are pursuing me, Coach V, we really need you on our team. Why are they pursuing me? Because they've seen results someplace else. When I'm pursued, I know we are making a difference. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's simple, but it's not.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about it. But you know, in reality, it's also the tough thing to show the numbers because, you know, I've worked with lots of nonprofits over the years, and
You know,
the people who are writing the check,
yeah.
they want to say, all right, I really love what you're doing, Coach V. Here's a check, and then next year they want to say, okay, show me the results. Did you get 100? Did you successfully convert 100? You know, and you can't, and it's an interesting dilemma, and I think. Yeah, there's some head scratching to think about in that, because the stories are great. The stories are what sells, but you know, how do you know how many?
And here's another thing.
acts?
Otis, here's another thing. When you work with the same team for years, which is what I do, where's the new data? There is none.
Right.
Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
If I start with the football team, and after 4 years, because I've worked for teams now for years, I have the same. And what happens, you know how ODAAP grows? A coach takes it to another team.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes a head coach of another team. And he automatically says, ODAAP is a part of this program from this day forth. That's how it works. That's how ODAAP spreads. Coaches can't come to me and say, oh, I want to be a part of your program. They can, but they're vetted. I go to their games. I watch how they interact with their kids. And if I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling it. I will not invite you into our program. If I already know by watching you, you're not ready, or what my mind called teachable, there's no point. I know you're not. You're going to undo everything I try to do. So why would I pull you in my program? And there's teams that's been doing this for years. And now I've just come to the conclusion. You're ready for ODAAP, dude. I can tell you're ready. You're ready. You come on into the fold, if you will. But a lot of coaches, you know, their old school coaching could never, it would clash with ODAAP. Old school coaching, clash. It would be a big clash.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's how we spread. That's how we grow. But the truth is, we put our stakes in wherever we're allowed in. And the teams that I've been with now, I have been with them for years. I've watched them graduate. Young men go off to college, rep. So I don't have any new data to give you other than I did another rep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a bit of an optimist in this sort of sense, and there's a bigger picture to look at the data. You know, in
that
the
is important.
So it's not just those young men on that team, but what's the effect on the neighborhood? And that's
that's true too.
I believe that in that effect, and that's getting back to, you know, my favorite part about what you do is that it's not the symptom, it's going to the root. And if when these young men go back home and they change what's going on in the neighborhood, that's the difference maker. And that's where it's really, I mean, you could, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that pulls some data for us somehow that could show that change. I believe that in my heart, because I believe in what you're doing.
See that? Remember Otis, the young man that says, now I'm teaching my dad?
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, now I'm teaching my dad. I was shocked when he said that, because he hadn't been treating his mother right. He said, now I'm teaching my dad how to treat my mom. So there you go, Otis, to your point, right? Community. Right?
It is.
How you measure that? I don't know.
Yeah, because if they're recognizing their teammates, what's going on with their teammate on the field in the heat of a game, I guarantee you they're seeing it in their neighbors, in their friends they hang out with at the house on Friday night or whatever. They're seeing it there too. So
yeah, it's I could tell you, guys, I got a story for days. But I'm not going to do that to y'all. But I'm just saying,
we're going to hop off Zoom. My dad and I, we're going to go on mute. We're just going to leave you on for an hour.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
We'll be back in an hour.
Look, I'm very glad that you guys had me on, honestly. And to anybody that's listening, check out ODAAP. We don't have too many frills and thrills, but we do have impact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and and you do teach lessons in everything you do. And
All day long.
and I'm going back to something I just, you know, I was brought up in a nice, friendly, and safe environment. So some of the things that I took for granted, like going to school as a safe haven, I never even thought of. You know, because I probably have some friends that I played ball with, and I know that school was that for them. I never thought about it that way. And you know, if any of you guys are out there listening, I'm thinking about you, because that's a great lesson in life to understand that for some folks, because of their home environment, going to school is a getaway, and it's a nice break for them. So that's something I learned. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, the talking about being an example of what's right, your story about the young man with his family. And one of the things I think about all the time in all sorts of different issues is how when we get to that point where there's such a heavy disagreement of those type of things, we want to remove ourselves. You know, it's like the joke every election, 5 states want to secede. And it's like, because they don't like what happened. It's like, well, we need you now more than ever. We need the dialogue more than ever. You want to be that example of what's right. It makes me think of, I think it's a Seneca quote, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong on that, if you know, but it's, you know, to gently correct somebody's wrongs. Don't scold people. Don't, you know, yell at them. Don't do anything like that, because that doesn't actually have the outcome you want. If you yell at somebody, they're not going to change their behavior. If you gently correct them, if you teach them why, just like you said, Coach V, why do you want to do that? Why do you have those feelings? Then you can help people to change. And so don't remove yourself from that. Be the example of what's right and try to gently correct the people around you.
Yeah. And, you know, for me, what I'm getting out of this, just hearing myself talk and then listening to you guys respond, is that it's okay. Like, it's okay to take this route, even though it's not popular, right? And even though you don't have globs of money coming in type thing, and you're not supported the way you want to be, it's okay to take this route, you know, because of the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have to say, because sometimes I find myself getting very, very frustrated, you know, if you can imagine. And I thought, oh gosh, this is so good, especially when you see different things like that young man saying before camp, he would just listen to his family. But now after camp, I can't just sit here and listen to this anymore. Like, that is amazing. But, you know, it's okay if that's all that is to come out of this, it's okay.
Oh, making the change.
It's okay.
That's the difference.
That's Coach, what I learned.
How do folks follow you? How do they help out ODAAP?
ODAAP, www.odaap.org. That's ODAAP as in Paul.org. And we are on Twitter and Instagram at ODAAPINC, ODAAP Incorporated, ODAAPINC. So that's the website and our social media handle.
Beautiful, beautiful. Coach V, again, love what you're doing. I love that you're not treating the symptom, man. You're going right to the root and making the change. The world is better because of what you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to the Cam Otis Show. And a special thanks to our guest, Coach V, for joining us today. And of course, our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. Get started for free today at findyourpurpose.coach. Make sure to follow the Cam Otis Show on Instagram and Facebook. And please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Videos of the podcast are on our YouTube page. And you can always get a full archive of the episodes at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.